with expeditions by the National Land Commission, and the National Land Commission has not managed to help. I would have proposed that if we can get perhaps an ad hoc committee or another method to consolidate these petitions that are of a similar nature that require National Land Commission to be heard simultaneously. Alternatively, we give leave to this committee to expedite these processes quickly. Otherwise, these people are going to suffer. They're going to be evicted. Taita Taveta County has become famous for people who want to grab land, who want to chase away squatters, and buy it for a song. It is a famous county for this malfeasance that has been visited on Kenyans for so long. Those people are so poor, so desperate. Land that has got sisal, wildlife, it's got minerals, and benefits everybody else except the people of Taita Taveta County. It is very unfortunate that Taita Taveta County is amongst the marginalized counties of Kenya, yet the biggest hotels, the best Tanzanites, and all those nice-looking gems come from that county. It's actually a contradiction of terms. Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Gertrude Musurove.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to support this petition by Senator Mwaruma. And it must be very clear, and it's a fact, that land is a factor of production. And with land, you can do so much economically. It will give one economic empowerment. And so being denied of land over so many years is unfortunate, Honorable Speaker. And people cannot be squatters for over 50 years on a piece of land. These are people who have been even taking care of the boundaries and ensuring that land is productive. They have stayed on this land for so many years, and there are some children who are born on that piece of land. They do not know any other home, and there's need for the Ministry of Land to ensure that it is being fair and justice is done to these families that are being termed as squatters, yet they have made good use of this land. I hope that when this petition goes to the lands committee, where Senator Githiomi sits, he's going to do justice to these petitioners and ensure that they are given their rightful due, because they also have a future, they have families. But when your land has been taken away, you are grounded economically, you are grounded socially, and we have to see how to bring these people back to their feet. Honorable Speaker, I support this statement. May it be given the justice it deserves in the Committee of Lands. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Johnson Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, I walked in late. I wanted to comment earlier on the issue of the communication on BBI. But, Mr. Speaker, on this matter, I just want to pick up from where Senator Mutula has left off. And I can say the leader of minorities in the House, the leader of majority was here. I sympathize with this committee. As a chair of a committee, the right to petition Parliament in Article 119 is really an absolute right, that any Kenyan should be able to do that. And that is one of the highlights of the constitution that we have. But Mr. Speaker, administratively, this committee now has, I think, 28 to 30 petitions. There is no way they can be able to do it. Our standing orders provide that the petition needs to be heard and determined within 60 days. And I doubt many committees have been able to handle this. I've had a hard time. I'm happy my committee doesn't have any pending petitions. But Mr. Speaker, this is for the leadership, Senator Mutula being part of them, that we need to do two things. Number one, we need to split this committee. The number of petitions are mainly because of the width of its mandate. Land, environment, issues of housing, issues of settlement, issues of water. It's too wide for that committee. And Senator Githiomi has really distinguished himself as a very good chair, and he's also a member of my committee. But there is no way they'll be overwhelmed. And Mr. Speaker, the more we fail to respond to these questions by Kenyans, the less faith they will have in the Senate. So I'm really putting it on record that the first thing that we need to do is to find a way to split this committee. I've advised Senator Githiomi and a few members of that committee that within your committee, you can actually set up subcommittees. Yeah, out of the 9 members, you can set up 3 subcommittees to just deal with these petitions, and do a retreat and deal with all of these, at least half of them, within the next few, months or two. It can be done. But administratively, we need to split it. Then, Mr. Speaker, this is a question we need to answer. That in as much as the right is absolute to petition, as a chair of a committee, I realize that somebody can keep me busy by just sending petitions, because that's the first thing you must deal with. So our legislative agenda as a committee, you'll not be able to do. You'll not be able to do, oversight. You'll not be able to play your other roles, because all you'll be doing is dealing with petitions. I think half of them are from Taita Taveta. In as much as the issues are weighty, administratively there needs to be, a filter. That if a similar matter is being dealt with, that petition holds for a while until the committee has a certain threshold of petitions left and then brings them. Otherwise, we'll just bombard our committees, and our committees will be operated by remote control. On this specific issue, I really sympathize with the people of Taita Taveta, the good people of Taita Taveta, and I hope a solution can be found. Mr. Speaker, the only way to deal with this issue is not just through the petition. The committee, all those who are, the relevant stakeholders, and in one sitting deal with it. It doesn't have to be dealt with per se in the traditional sense of a petition. We can be pragmatic. We have rules, but they ask, was the law made for man or man made for the law? We can be able to circumvent some of these red and, black and white provisions and be pragmatic enough to sort it out. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abshiro Alaki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this petition and say that issues of land, especially when it's dealing with communities, is becoming a big problem. I was a member of the Lands Committee, and yes, it's correct that there's very many petitions and cases that they're handling. That having been said, I think something needs to be done, even if it's ad hoc committee like Senator Mutula has mentioned. Mr. Speaker, when it's private land, it's a different matter, but whenever it's a community, it looks like we're having an issue. And the issue is that even the land index bill that we passed not so long ago, which had really had very clear definition of what is public land, what is private land, and what is community land, is not being applied when it comes to community. It's as if it's only private land that is well defined and well established, and there's evidence of shifting boundaries, not necessarily physical boundaries, but through definitions and degazettements, because all government needs to do is to degazette or to gazette something as public or community. So I think this is something that needs to be looked at, and we need to really make sure that the Land Commission, again, we have a situation where the Land Commission will send you to the Ministry of Land, and the Ministry of Land will send you back to the county, and the county will send you back to the National Land Commission, and the circus goes on. I was a member of that committee, and just the SGR land issue took us the entire 2 years. And even to date, I don't think it has been resolved satisfactorily. So I think we need to really find a way as this Senate to make sure that, especially those for vulnerable people, because there are people that don't have a waiting or stay power to wait for until many months and many years pass. So I think something needs to be done, but more importantly, I think what we need to do is we need to summon the Ministry of Land, and some of these issues can be dealt with in plenary, I think, because whenever there's issues that have been escalated to the plenary, there's more action that we've observed as opposed to when committees are being asked to deal with these issues. So I think maybe what the committee needs to do is to prioritize which are the ones facing the people, which are the ones facing the most vulnerable people. Because again, I have seen a situation where perhaps when the big boys, the people in the SGR's case, for instance, the people that had big chunks of land that were owed the most money were the ones that were prioritized. When somebody that was just being compensated 30,000 didn't get any pay. So I think there's injustice in these land issues, but more importantly, I think this House needs to really look at its priorities when it comes to this. I support and look forward to seeing this being done, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Nderitu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support this petition by Maruma from Tete Taveta. Senator Maruma. Mr. Speaker, mine is just a concern about this petition. It's not the number. For me, I'm not concerned much about the number of petitions. The number of petitions that we have handled, how have we resolved them? Because that would be the $1 million question. So that even if it would take the number of years that Senator Mtula Kilonzo mentioned, people can be hopeful that something going to happen. We had a petition from Laikipia, the permanent evictees. Yes, it came here, and I remember it was about 2 months ago where Senator for Vihiga was talking about what they have done, the recommendations. But Mr. Speaker, for me, it's not about the number of petitions, it is the implementation. The recommendation after we have dealt with this number, many petitions, like for example, the 30 petitions, if the 2 petitions that came to this house, how were they resolved? And if they were resolved, then Kenyans can be hopeful that they can still wait. But if we are doing this as a procedure, it will be, Mr. Speaker, it will be an excess in futility, because people in Laikipia right now, they brought their petition, it was heard, and I want to thank the committee. I remember Senator Kasanga, Senator Maruma, and the chair, Senator Gidyomi, they came to Laikipia, they listened to those people, and they even gave their recommendations, but they are still pending. So it's not about how many petitions are there. Even if we determine them in this house as it is required by our standing order, it should be determined within 60 days. If they're determined, are we implementing we have recommended? That is the $1 million question, Mr. Speaker.
What's it, Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr.?
The question raised by Senator Kinyo is important, but unfortunately this House doesn't have an implementation committee. This matter has not been discussed, although I know Senator Haniri raised it yesterday. But seated at plenary, once we make our resolutions, there's no framework for making sure that these things are implemented. We have so many. So Lidam is one of them. We made recommendations, they were ignored. I hope, like the one that was discussed yesterday about the building that is being purchased by Uasin Gishu County, will not be ignored. But you have been here long enough to know that we have passed so many recommendations on BPS and nothing has been implemented. I've said this before. And thank you.
Senator Nderitu.
There's difference between, I'm not lamenting, I'm just picking and observing a fact. That's not lamenting, and I am a good Christian more than Mtula Kilonzo, because even his name does not suggest anything, because my name is John, and John was the Baptist, and him does not have anything close to Christianity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senators, we proceed. What's it, Senator Pareno?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to bring the attention of the senators to a provision of the standing orders that I read the other day. I don't remember, it was 2 something. If the clerk can help us, that actually provides for each committee to be able to follow up on their own resolutions and call for reports from the various ministries that are handling. So we don't have to wait for an implementation committee. We can be using that provision of that order, standing order, for us to be able to call to order those that have not been able to implement what we have done. Maybe I can check the provision later.
What's it, Senator Sakaja?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Pareno makes very strong points most times, and today is not an exception. And I'll just give an example, because this is really to exhort chairs. We are the implementation committees on our own areas. There's a petition that came to the House by the Kenya Railway pensioners. They had arrears of more than, I think, a year. They are suffering, languishing. In as much as we finish the petition, Senator Milgo will tell you just today, we have had the third follow-up meeting. As of today, we've been able to secure all their money. We reduced the delays from 12 months to 4 months. We've secured another 1.2 billion that they're getting on Friday to deal with that issue of the, the arrears. We're getting compensation for government getting railway, despite having finished the petition. Senator Faria is reminding me of Wajir. They had also a similar issue. Even as much as we had already tabled the petition, we went ahead and made sure all of those staff were able to be paid, and they were very happy. So I'm not blowing any trumpet, but I'm just encouraging fellow chairs that once you've finished with any work, you don't dump it, because you're your own implementation committee, and even you can task your secretariat at every subsequent, every other meeting, to bring back and remind you what is still pending, what are the resolutions you passed, to keep writing letters. It can be done, and I think that is the way to go. Because an implementation committee, I'm against us having an implementation committee, because a committee has dealt with an issue technically. You've gone through, for instance, on the pension issues. Today you've dealt with that, you've finished with it, critically and in the very technical form of it. So tomorrow another committee is starting from scratch, will not even understand the history of the issue. And then tomorrow they're dealing with the doctors, and then the next day the same committee is dealing with water. They may not understand how, what went on, or have the, institutional memory. So it's just for us to encourage our chairs. And tomorrow we'll be at liaison committee. I will make that exhortation. And Sakaja is a Christian name, Senator Mutula.
The honorable senators, I bring your attention to Standing Order 215, reports on Senate resolutions. That is the implementation of the resolutions of committees. That is on part 1 and 2. Now we proceed. Senator Milgo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this petition, and maybe beginning from implementation, I want to say we are not blowing trumpets here, but then we in Labour Committee, we've been ensuring that we take up an issue up to its logical conclusion. Senator Mutula Jr. will bear with me witness. Another time I invited them about the water issue between Kajiado County, Makueni, and the next county, and we were able to solve that issue. And as we are speaking right now, something has been done to those employees. I think that one, Mobrellos, was the most difficult one, and we managed to solve. So let me support this petition in terms of the fact that actually this is a challenge, that's in their own land. And one interesting story is that a foreigner would leave some chunk of land for well over 10 years, and then upon returning, will just come and take over as if maybe there were animals staying there. I think those people of Taita Taveta have actually suffered. It is unfortunate. In fact, it is today, I'm learning that there are even minerals there. I used to know that that particular farm that belonged to Criticals had sisal. But then that means that is a very productive land. But then our major challenge, I think our challenge is actually with the Land Commission, because those are the people who deal with land leases. They deal with, in this case, ensuring that title deeds are given out. And in this case, I can visualize the challenges that the people that have been in this farm are really going to suffer, where we've learned that they have already grown fruits to maturity. That means those people have been there for well over 10 years. And in this case, they are going to lose all their livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is a challenge. One will disrupt a community that has been living in a place. I can compare this to my own community that have been disrupted in a Mao area. Each and every time elections are around the corner, and these people have had to serve. Some of them have had to pass on as a result of actually the stress that most of all their energies, they have had to learn there. They have built schools. They have even constructed wonderful houses there. Speaker, we do realize that we are not only disrupting the old people, we are even disrupting school-going children. And for that reason, this is a challenge. It is our hope that the committee concerned with this particular petition, the Committee on Lands will look for a way out, maybe to combine a number of these petitions, look at similar questions, and then maybe call on board the concerned people. I remember today in our committee, Labour Committee, we had up to about 5 groups. We listened to them. There was Treasury, there was RPA, there was so many. In fact, the House was so full, one would just get scared that we were going to solve the issues. But then we were very keen because our committee is normally fully attended and every one of us was picking up an issue and we were able to solve. So I think the Lands Committee should find a way out so that we don't actually relegate this particular petition maybe to 2023 or 2024 in the next parliament. We got to solve it. And I think one other way is what we said, we can break the committee into subcommittees so that we have about 3 people dealing with an issue so that we can assist these people of Taita Taveta. It is quite unfortunate, I can feel for them. And in this country, in a short while, those people will have to actually require medical treatment, they'll require food, and very many other amenities. And in this case, it becomes very expensive to maintain communities that have been evicted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support this petition.
Senator Faria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this petition. Senator Maruma has been known to continuously, fight for the rights of his people, and he's been doing that very well. Mr. Speaker, if there are so many petitions that come to this House, clearly Kenyans have some level of faith that things will happen. And Mr. Speaker, it will be very disappointing if the same House where Kenyans have a lot of faith in terms of bringing their issues here, still nothing moves. Let me give you an example of and I agree with Senator Sakaja that Lands Committee should either be split or let them have subcommittees to deal with matters. There is a petition I brought to this House way in 2019. And up to now, I have not seen any reports. I've not had any visits, and I'm wondering what's happening. And the situation was dire when I brought that petition. There's a dump site that people were, children were, it was open, and children would go there even to, some bottles that were dropped there, from, some bars, and they were drinking, children, goats and animals, going inside that dump site and getting infected and dying. And some people, those are their livelihoods in terms of the town. There are, people who keep animals around the periphery of the town. And those things are not being adequately addressed. And therefore, I agree that Lands Committee, I think, land is an emotive issue in this country. There's so many things that go on in terms of land disputes, in terms of squatters, in terms of so many things that is happening in this country. And we need people who are on top of things, not talking about 2019 issues. Up to now, there's nothing that's ongoing, Mr. Speaker. And I think there are some things that they can remove from that committee. For example, wildlife. It comes under tourism, and there's trade and tourism committee that can work on land issues. So there are a lot that we can do, although the ministries, I think, keep on shifting departments. But once the department has shifted, the role we should amend our standing orders in such a way that once departments move between ministries, then that option of the same department moving to the other one should be implemented, Mr. Speaker. And then the other thing, finally, Mr. Speaker, in this country, sometimes I tend to feel it is a crime to be poor in this country. Because all the issues that people face, the brunt is felt by the people, the poor people. I think a little bit more humane in how we take care of squatters, in how even if we evict, there is a solution. Remember even the issue of Kisumu. A mosque which is almost 90-year-old being brought down just in a day. That is a historical site. And, there are just many issues that happen, especially those that impact on poor people. They have even no money to go to court or do nothing. And Mr. Speaker, I think let us be a little bit more sympathetic with people who keep on electing us year in, year out. And we need to really, take care of them the way they have taken care of us at all level of elective positions, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I think, I don't know whether we can strengthen laws and stuff like that in terms of the evictions, but like it's being said that even that when the laws are there, still they are applied selectively. So I think let us be a little bit more humane in this country in terms of how we handle issues surrounding our poor people who are not able to defend themselves, who don't have enough money to fight in courts, and who are just so vulnerable that if they are displaced from one place, they become totally destitute, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this country where informal sector is the engine of the economy of this country that drives this country, no wonder we don't develop. Because the very people who are engine of development in this country are the ones who face eviction. They are the ones who face, their business being displaced, their property sometimes being burnt by some, unscrupulous business people who even themselves grabbed the land of the squatters. Mr. Speaker, I think let us have some responsible society in this country and let us protect our people. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kasanga, I hope now you are making your own contributions. Okay. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I sit in the Committee of Lands, I think, and yourself. And, the work is a lot. That is true. That is true what the senators are saying. But I believe, we are up to the task. Our chairperson has been, of course, very robust at it. And yes, we encountered a lot of challenges because most of our meetings have a lot of documentation and a lot of paperwork. But we manage, even during COVID time and using the online meetings. Now we are up to speed and we are managing, and we even have our petitioners being able to log in from some very remote places and are able to actually prosecute their cases. And as a committee, of course, realizing the number of petitions we have to deal with, we have managed to be able to, sort of put them together, the petitions, and prosecute them at once. So although our meetings sometimes are very long, sometimes we sit for even up to 6 hours to prosecute several petitions that are of similar nature, where it's the lands, the Ministry of Lands together with the National Land Commission or with the Environment Ministry, we get them all together, then we're able to prosecute several petitions at the same time. And I'm happy that we have tabled quite a number of reports. And I think what is now most outstanding is the implementation part of it. But now I hear about the standing order, so maybe that is something as a committee then we can pick on when it comes to now implementation of those reports. And I do agree, because petitions come to us, they're emotive, we prosecute them, and we prosecute them very well when they're at committee. But until it is implemented, then of course the rubber has not met the road, and the citizens then don't get their actual rights that they have come to us to prosecute. So I agree on that matter. When it comes to the constitution of the committee, when the committees were reconstituted, we lost some of very, robust members. And in fact, I'm the only female, woman senator in the committee, and it gets very lonely sometimes, Mr. Speaker. We need more women in that committee. That is a sort of, work that, women would be able to increase the speed, or, the speed of prosecution, if I may say so. So when you're looking at it, then so be it. Let's have whatever proposal you have. If it is subcommittees, it means then the secretariat needs to be empowered, because our secretariat have to be really in touch with the issues. Some of them are fairly technical. So I don't know how subcommittees would work, but again, we are happy that we can move these things fast. Our time is running so quickly. We only have a year and a half to go. So it would be good if we can clear the table, Mr. Speaker. So I ask the House leadership, Senator Mutula, you're here. If we can get some female members on board, it would be very nice. and as well as you advise us on how to prosecute faster. And also challenge I've seen in our committee, when we have to visit places, again, we have to sort of put them, the like areas together, which can be a challenge because you cannot move from one county and cross over to another and another in a short span. So we tend to have to lump issues together and say we are now going to, say if it's Mount Kenya region, and prosecute the area, which means then we are on the road for 3 or 4 days. Then we have to do maybe Isiolo. Isiolo you can't do in 2 days, you do it in 1 day, and you have to hop from one section to another, hopefully with the aid of an air vehicle, which is a helicopter, and those costs are high to run some of these things. So again, we look for guidance from the leadership of the House. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 232-1, the petition should be committed to the relevant standing committee for its consideration. In this case, I direct the petition be committed to the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources. In terms of Standing Order 232-2, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. I thank you. Honorable Senators, Senator Wambua, in regard to order number 8, that is Committee of the Whole, the Mark Beans Bill, the Senate Bill number 9 of 2020, Senator Wambua is not present. I therefore defer that order. Then we proceed to next order.
Order number 9, motion. Adoption of report of the Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investments on audit reports for the county executives for financial year 2014-2015, 1st July 2014 to 30th June 2015.
Chairperson. Honorable Senators, the order is open for debate. Senator Gertrude Musuruve was on the floor, but she concluded her contributions on the order. Senator Gertrude, you concluded your contributions on the motion. Senator Sakaja.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support that this House adopts the report of the Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investment on the consideration of audit reports of Bomet, Homa Bay, Isiolo, Kakamega, Kiambu, Laikipia, Kisumu, Mandera, Migori, Mombasa, Murang'a, Nandi, and all those counties that are listed in the order paper for the executives for the financial year 2014-15, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 18th February. Mr. Speaker, I'll just make very brief remarks, because last week when we had a similar motion, I was able to speak to it, and that was another batch of audit reports. Mr. Speaker, the first thing is to really acknowledge a gentleman who went to a good school, Senator Kajwang. Mr. Speaker, Senator Kajwang went to the Duke of York, or popularly known as Lenana School, and that is how he became very efficient. If you see the previous CPICs, if you compare them, and I don't want to compare members, it's not right, but the amount of backlog he was able to clear with his committee in the short time that he served as chair, Mr. Speaker, is impressive. I keep saying that it's unfortunate that many times in the Senate, we are here as morticians, and not even fresh morticians. We are doing old postmortems for many years ago. If you're looking at audit reports, Mr. Speaker, of 2014-15, for instance, today, Senator, and I don't know which example to give, Senator Visiolo, Senator Abshiro, Senator Visiolo, Senator Abshiro, will be looking at reports of the former governor of Isiolo County. And in as much as it will tell you the systemic issues, I think she's interested really in what is currently going on in the county of Isiolo. Mr. Speaker, I am keen to look at the audit reports of Governor Kidero, but apart from the issues of system, because the audit is not just financial, but also system issues. Mr. Speaker, I want to look at Governor, I don't even know who's the governor of Nairobi now. I have to look at DG Kananu, and I want to look at NMS currently. Mr. Speaker, what that gives us is real-time audit and real-time oversight. This is a house of oversight, and that is our most critical role. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that I pushed, as we came into the Senate, the issue of the control of budget, sending each senator the monthly exchequer release for their counties. Because, Mr. Speaker, that gives you an immediate view of what is going on. And I want to thank the Control of Budget's office and the Nairobi office for the control of budget, because I've been getting them timely and they pick up their calls, they're able to explain. And Mr. Speaker, in the last one that I saw, I was really dismayed that in this financial year that we're going to conclude soon, Mr. Speaker, out of an allocation of 37 billion, Nairobi County government has only received 4.7 billion. And this 4.7 billion is for the entire financial year, and zero, and all that is on the current, zero on development, zero to NMS. NMS currently is operating on national government budgets. Mr. Speaker, it is not sustainable. Yeah, I'm glad with the work they're doing. They're doing a lot of good work, but this is a system that needs to be properly funded and oversighted. Because if you ask which vote they're getting money from, even at the national level, no one will be able to tell you which vote they're getting the money from. This morning, Mr. Speaker, we were discussing the issue of compensation of my traders who are here at Railway. These traders, and of course the railway scheme, are supposed to be compensated. The land was valued at 13 billion, where NMS is now putting up a bus park and some dispensary. NLC is saying that it is actually 9.5, and we have a dispute around that. But even if you say 9.5 billion to actually compensate these traders and the retirement scheme. Fortunately, Mr. Speaker, for now, acquisition was made by the Kenya National Highways Authority, but later they realized they don't need that land. So they're doing it on behalf of NMS, and I'm sure within government they can be able to reallocate. But Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying is that we need more sustainable ways of funding that entity, because at the end of this financial year, if you look at the audit, it will be difficult to then audit the county executive of Nairobi as well as the NMS. So I'm grateful that we've been able to come this far. I hope that there are more of these reports that are coming for us to be able to debate. And the one thing that I think we must do as a House to make us efficient, and as we finish this term, for those of you who are interested in coming back to the Senate, it'll be important, Mr. Speaker, that in the same way we have a very robust and useful parliamentary budget office, that we need to set up a parliamentary audit office. A parliamentary audit office that goes step by step and hand in hand with not just the CPI committee, but with each and every senator in real time. So they're able to break down issues for you as you play oversight role. So that oversight is not subjective and political. That because I don't like this governor, let me say that he's stealing or he's not doing well, but it's based on facts and on reports, and it is real time, Mr. Speaker. That even we can ask for special audits through the Parliamentary Audit Office. Mr. Speaker, I think it's something we can explore. Senator Mutula, you sit in the Finance Committee and you're patched high up in leadership. It's something we can explore even not just as legacy, but to actually make the work of Senate under, as provided for in the Constitution, more effective, as opposed to me looking at reports of 2014 and 15, and then trying to understand for myself the most recent report. If you had a Parliamentary Audit Office, the most recent report by the Auditor General, I can be able to sit with them and go through the executive of Nairobi County, the legislature of Nairobi County Assembly. I can be able to go through NMS and know really whether Nairobians are getting value for the money and the taxes that they're paying, and whether us, because Mr. Speaker, we haggle in this house, we fight for allocations. Mr. Speaker, I am proud as Nairobi Senator that in my time, I have moved our allocation from 15 billion to 19 billion. The first year was 15.6, then 15.8, and we've gone up, and so far 19 billion. If we pass BBI, which I know will be passed by the, if Kenyans deem it fit for us to pass it, and I pray that we were able to pass it, Mr. Speaker, Nairobi will immediately go to 25 billion. Yeah? So why would we fight so much on how much money we give our counties? And I'm sure the rest of the senators can be able to see what they've gotten. And then when it comes to how it is used, we are years behind. It doesn't make sense. Mr. Speaker, you are in a boot, or rather the senator of Samburu. When you're in the city, you're not the senator for Samburu. The senator for Samburu was taken, arrested because of looking for resources for his county. Why is it that when you're hunting, we put so much effort as a Senate, but in oversight, we are not facilitated to actually play that role? And facilitation, and people should get it right. Because I've said in this house that money that members wanted of oversight, I would not support it. Because it then looks like, we're trying to get resources for ourselves. And first of all, you had refused to use a formula. You wanted to give us all the same amount of money. The Senate of Nairobi with 85 wards and 17 constituencies with 4.3 million people was supposed to get the same money as Lamu with 2 constituencies. Even if you're to do meetings, you cannot do the same number of meetings, Mr. Speaker. If you're to meet 100 people per ward, that automatically for me is 8,500. So in the same way, and that is why I don't support it. But when we say we want to be facilitated to do oversight and audit, it is this kind of oversight I'm talking about. That you can have experts, you can have auditors, you can have accountants, you can have people, experts in finance, and people who can even do surveys on different issues. I can decide this year, with that fund, I want to concentrate on infrastructure and to see how infrastructure is being done, solid waste management in Nairobi, for instance, to understand how the social programs are being done. That is what that kind of money should have been used for, and that is what we should be doing. But by having these resources, human resource, of a parliamentary audit office, then we should be able to do that. Mr. Speaker, the next point that I have seen in these audit reports is the matter of revenue. We are getting to that point as a country where we need to have that conversation. And many times we say it in passing, and we say it almost as a joke, that we concentrate so much on sharing the cake and not enough on baking the cake. So we have a commission of revenue allocation. We will soon need a commission of revenue generation. If you look at our public debt at the national level, Mr. Speaker, we are paying, the biggest project today in Kenya is debt. We are paying thrice the amount of money we are giving to counties. But Mr. Speaker, it is not because we don't need to spend, but it's because we are not creating those resources. Many of our county governments, and if you look at these reports and go back to even the county councils, there's been very little change from what the councils were collecting to what now the county governments have been collecting, starting from 2013. And you wonder, with the new efficiencies, with better ability, with automation, now we have all of this, smart solutions on the phones, we should be getting more money. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, in Nairobi, a few of them are automated, but still below the last county government. Nairobi County has the potential, and this I dare say, Nairobi County has the potential of raising between 50 to 70 billion shillings a year, as it is. Especially since we passed the sectional properties law. Senator Kasanga will tell you, from a perspective, we are redoing the valuation role of rates in Nairobi. Right now it's at the assembly. Nairobi itself can even be listed. Look at what's happening in Joburg. Yeah? So if we do that 70 billion plus 25 billion that we're giving to counties, courtesy of the formula and BBI, Mr. Speaker, we'll be talking about an audit of more than 100 billion that we need to be looking at, Mr. Speaker. And because we're auditing the expenditure of that, which will transform life in this city, we need to strengthen oversight. Otherwise, it will be an avenue for pilferage. It will be an avenue through which governors can be able to collect money at source and spend at source. And we have known many cases where even vehicles of Wells Fargo in our counties, and I won't mention which counties, have been seen going to governors' houses with cash, or their chiefs of staff. Is it chiefs of staff or chief of staffs? They're aid putting cash in the houses, Mr. Speaker. We must have a standard. There was supposed to be a national payment gateway that was to be effected, I think, by Posta and in conjunction with the national government. That payment gateway must make it uniform for all counties in terms of how they collect revenue, Mr. Speaker. Because once we do that, if you look at Chapter 12, Mr. Speaker, because we have a form of fiscal decentralization that limits the revenue-raising capabilities of counties. The 4 principles of devolution: number 1 is expenditure allocation, then revenue raising ability, then intergovernmental transfer, and then subnational borrowing. Mr. Speaker, in our experience of devolution, we have jumped number 1 and number 2 and moved to number 3. Because if you look at number 1 is what you allocate, it's 4th schedule. These are the expenditure responsibilities. Once you've known those functions, then you cost the functions. When you cost them, then you say, what are the revenue raising opportunities? Now, number 3, the intergovernmental transfer is supposed, if you look at all other jurisdictions, Mr. Speaker, I wrote a book on this. In fact, the first book on fiscal decentralization in 2009, within all the jurisdictions I looked at. India, if you look at South Africa, those with a form of devolution like ours, not federalism, the intergovernmental transfer is normally to fill the gap between to do by the constitution and what you're able to raise. But today in Kenya, no governor is going out of his way to think of how to raise more money, because they are sure Senator Mutula will come with Team Kenya and Senator Milgo will be on the other side, and they will battle and they'll get their money. That's why even when we're having that debate, they were very proud and saying Senate is doing a bad job, there's no leadership, because they're just waiting for money from the national government. We need to review, and I wish BBI had looked at Chapter 12. Because I remember in Naivasha in 2009, before the 2010 referendum, there was a very light memorandum from Treasury with respect to Chapter 12 of public finance. And that is where we have a lot of our problems. Christine Lagarde told this country that the cost of the administrative structures in this new constitution will give us a problem like has been seen in many countries. And we're adding that now, even with BBI, in as much as I support it. So we need to rethink how we actually, are we setting up our counties to succeed? If you look at formulas, Mr. Speaker, countries like India have within their formula variables that make counties compete. Yeah? That the marginal increase in your county GDP contributes to whether you get more money. Because today, Mr. Speaker, our formulas are heavy on population and poverty, meaning a governor who's a governor for life in quotes would want to make sure his county is as poor as possible with as many people as possible, because that will mean then you get more money. So, Mr. Speaker, we are not competing properly. We've asked for certain indices to be put in the formula going forward, and I hope the next thing that does the next basis, we look at it. You know, poverty index, again, in the world of today is a measure of darkness, because all it tells you is the ratio of those who are below the poverty line and those who are above. You need to look at human development index. You need to look at, and I think CRA started with some of the things they brought, in as much as they had a lot of voodoo variables. They started looking at those issues of water, access to healthcare. So in as much as you don't like how they counted the access to healthcare, saying it's the number of visits to hospitals, yet Senator Wambua's county may not have enough hospitals to even visit in the first place, that is the direction we need to be going. So that we make sure counties compete on productivity, counties compete on being able to raise revenue, so that we grow as a country. And that competition is not the way governors are doing it. That today, I was in Meru over the weekend, and you see between Meru and Isiolo and Nanyuki, everyone is putting cess points. Yeah? It makes it even difficult to trade. You have to stop your truck. If you have a truck, Mr. Speaker, some of the work I do is in advertising, that is branded. The headache from Mombasa to Malaba, every county is looking for a piece of pie. Yet, Mr. Speaker, it would be very easy for us to have the counties, COG, and I wish I came for that meeting with them. I was following it online. Beyond just being a club, should make sure that, look, some of these monies can be collected centrally. So you don't have a businessman paying 10 counties rates, paying, 17 licenses with different standards is passing through there. So the issue of revenue, I think, on the audit has been brought out well, but we need to really emphasize on how we bake a bigger cake and how we consolidate. Governors have been, projecting very, very unrealistically how much they'll be able to get in terms of revenue collection. Mr. Speaker, beyond that, I would like to really encourage our county assemblies to take these reports, the reports that we're passing, and to look at them critically, Mr. Speaker. Our county assemblies are the first point of oversight. It's our county assemblies that indeed are the frontier, because we play a role of secondary, secondary oversight beyond the county assemblies. They need to do their work instead of just hobnobbing with governors and playing politics, Mr. Speaker. We have a lot of beautiful legislators in our county assemblies, Mr. Speaker. I was in Nairobi County Assembly when they debated BBI, and I was embarrassed to tell them that, in fact, they would put to shame a lot of their own MPs in terms of quality of debate and quality of thought. They have actually very good quality of debate. But now they just need to have financial autonomy as assembly, so that they can also keep their county governments to check. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this. I would want to hope that we start seeing more recent reports coming. I don't know what happened to the leadership, because we still have not constituted the new CPIC and I think delegated legislation, the sessional committees. Yet there's a lot that is going on currently. Let us constitute it, and let's put people who are vibrant, people who are able to, and every senator qualifies, but let's create a fresh team. Of course, some of institutional memory, but also just to reinvigorate those who are currently there. Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Senator Mtula Kilonzo.
Thank you, Speaker. Let me begin from where my good friend Senator Sakaja last left. A good practice in jurisdictions all over the world is actually to keep a permanent secretariat as opposed to members. That's what the Public Accounts Committee of the House of Commons does. That committee for 30 years. It becomes continuous. Unlike our practice where our secretariat is moved here and there. I have no problem with the practice, but it doesn't help us because the audits of 2013 for purposes of my county, Makueni, has no follow-up. Speaker, I recently did some calculations of how much money Makueni has received after devolution. In this financial year, it will be 60 billion shillings. Is there value for that money? Can I go to Makueni and proudly say that out of 60 billion shillings, the county has done anything worth the money that we have distributed? Mr. Speaker, the answer is no. What about the committee? I'm afraid that even the sight of the chamber today in relation to the discussions we are having on public accounts committees on all these counties just tells you that members have lost interest. How many senators who are currently in this house were here in 2014, 2015? They have no interest in following up some of the things that were done before them. So to some great extent, I think that the Committee of Public Accounts Committee needs redemption. There's some redemption. I've lost faith in that committee, and I say so because I've sat in so many meetings regarding my own county. The governor comes and gives undertakings to do several things within a... I've lost faith that the Public Accounts Committee of the Senate is going to offer the solutions that we need. And they are going to actually give reports that we can go out to the public and implement. The suggestion is a technical one. The proposal by Senator Sakaja might be the solution. That maybe that the next Senate must consider so that a technical committee can plug into the books of accounts of any county and come out with results. And let me tell you, my dear colleagues, I've been taken for training both in the House of Commons and to NCSL, which is the National Council for State Legislature in the US. And I want to say this, that it is only in Kenya where everything is an audit issue. We have such little faith. We have such bad manners of operating that everything must be questioned. Every single penny has a query. In fact, in NCSL, only those matters that are of such fundamental nature reach the level of the Senate. National Council for State Legislature. It's an umbrella body like the CAF, Council of... only those fundamental matters actually reach the level of this House. Half of them and majority are handled out there. But what is the current status? The County Governor of Makueni is now operating with the county assembly members in a by-election. The County Governor of Machakos is operating with county assembly members for purposes of the Senate by-election. Are those the same people who we are going to rely on to check while they're collecting money from the same governors? It's a shame, I tell you, and I'm disappointed that while we put in a lot of effort in this endeavor, chances are that we will not get much from the county assemblies members in so far as audit is concerned. The things that the Auditor General flags, for example, I raised this concern last week, that a document has been tabled here on COVID funds. The Committee of Health has not moved a notice of motion to adopt that report of the Auditor General. And the document is here. And that document was supposed to be, in fact, tabled by and later led by Senator Kasanga. Why? Why is it that we have to wait in a pandemic like this one to audit COVID funds by Makueni County at Senate level? Why hasn't the Assembly even noticed? Like in my case, we are supposed to have received 25,000 masks. Who saw those masks? I mean, who should have asked the question, fundamentally, where are these masks? It's the county assemblies. They're not asking. So I'm afraid, my dear colleagues, that devolution is going to fall on the sword of mismanagement. I was very glad yesterday to tell some people that I'm glad the money that we fought for so hard in Team Kenya and others is going to come out in the next financial year. These governors would have spent this money doing very nonsensical things. It's unfortunate. These matters must be done at a technical level. The governor, I represented the former governor of Central Bank, Governor Mulei. This governor came up with a system, and although he was eventually charged for it, the system was able to plug into the banking system and find out the misdemeanors, malfeasance, and malpractices of a bank. That's how Charterhouse Bank is the only bank in Kenya that was closed with money on it, because of a system. The people who disclosed this information, of course, became US citizens even before the information was made public. They had to run away. Can we have a system similar in counties? Because I am completely satisfied. Governors are doing paperwork. The county of Makueni received an unqualified opinion. They have become experts in drafting good documents. But when you go to Makueni and ask, is there a value for money? They will tell you there's no value for money. The Auditor General now writes a report and says the Kalamba Fruit Factory in Makueni is a loss-making factory. 6 years after it was constructed, after it has spent more than 1 billion shillings. I mean, what are you talking about? Auditors pick these things in advance. Auditor is supposed to pick the business plan. Where is the business plan for factories here and there? Kitui has a similar factory called Kikotek. We don't want to hear stories 7 years down the line that this was a white elephant after money has been spent. We must accept our title, senators, that we are morticians. There's nothing we can do. We will lament, and that book must be read continuously in this house. We will lament and nothing can be done. The auditors seem not to have capacity to pick these things. I have heard stories, I can repeat them on record here, that some counties have, of course, pocketed some auditors, and therefore the reports are just shady. Can you imagine? And Senator Faria had a proposal, and this is my last contribution, that there ought to be a method for the ISPAC to be outsourced at county level. Let me explain. That a county can pick private auditors to audit its accounts. or the Auditor General is able to outsource private auditors. Because the Auditor General will not confess, but the office has no capacity to audit the 47 counties and national government. No capacity. So, all of us, Sakaja included, Senator here, are proud to have sat in the assembly for them to have passed the Building Bridges initiative, which is going to bring 35%. Makueni, if all goes well, will receive an additional 4 billion shillings out of that framework. It is a scary thought. Very scary. And I know Kitui will receive more. Machakos will receive more. Nairobi will receive more. Wajir will receive more. And so will your county. Now, if we don't get the audit, the audit, it's not just audit. If we cannot get the accountability framework right, my dear senators, we are opening up for grand haste, just like in the movies. Now, I've always wondered, and Senator Sakaja, because you are an expert in this, can we begin questioning the wisdom? The previous constitution had both the controller of budget and auditor general performing the same function. It was one office. Now I tend to believe there was wisdom in it, and let me explain why. The controller of budget is very quick in tabling reports on the requisitions by counties and how they've spent the money. Now, does the controller of budget under the constitution marry the requisitions and their reports with the auditor general reports? They are like two people, one left hand and one right hand, that doesn't know what the other is doing. To the extent, therefore, that county governments are altering their requisitions after they move from the controller of budget and the auditor general cannot pick it up. It's a complete waste of time. These are some of the amendments that I would have proposed, that you merge those offices so that the office is able to track the A to Z. You requisition in Nairobi to buy a table. When you get to the county, you buy a flask. How you alter that requisition and nobody picks it up is an amazing concept. And when it comes here to the Public Accounts Committee, they make a recommendation, surcharge, etc., nothing happens. Accept and move on has become the mantra of Public Accounts Committee. And therefore, in my capacity, we will try our level best to see whether we can improve the committee or even suggest new membership. But my view is that if we are discussing 2014-2015 in 2021, the second-term governors are going to steal like Jesus is coming, because they know that the senators who are going to raise this are going to raise this after the election, and they will most likely be in the Isle of Man or some very exotic island that has no network. And there will be nothing you can do about it. Because unless you can sanction them or stop them from leaving, there's nothing you can do. The public finance bill, management bill that we had proposed that now has to go through republication, in fact, has something very drastic. Because the Auditor General is not going to help us. We had suggested, as the Committee of Finance, that we freeze some expenditure just before elections. Governors, now that I have seen the by-election in Machakos, now that I have seen a by-election in Makueni, I guarantee that governors are going to use county funds to get governors who will not question their pilferage of funds. It's going to happen unless we can lock out some of the expenses that are done sometime in 2022. It's going to be very unfortunate and find empty coffers. They will either carry the money in cartons or do something worse. Ban, like they do. Ban the finance offices. And Senator Wambo was right, that the only offices that ban in our counties, the only office that burns. It's the office where the financial records are kept. May God help this country. Thank you. Yes, I'm ready to be informed.
Senator Sakaja, on your point of information.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wanted Senator Mtula to go towards the end so that I inform him, because I do want to stop that flow. You know, he's like a preacher when he starts and he gets fire. Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of wisdom in many jurisdictions that still have the office of the Controller and Auditor General. And I think it is something that we need to discuss. If you look at the old Public Audit Act and how they function, and many jurisdictions, and I'll just give you an example. There's an audit function that the Auditor General does, but the Controller function actually really complements and enables that audit function. If you look at New Zealand, Mr. Speaker, the Controller and Auditor General has, it's stipulated, and anyone can look at it. In his Controller function, something that Senator Mtula just mentioned, it says, the main features of the Controller function are: one, Treasury supplies monthly statements to the Auditor General to examine whether expenses and capital expenditure have been incurred in keeping with appropriations. Number two, the Auditor General there can direct a minister to report to the House of Representatives, like the Senate, the National Assembly, if the Auditor General believes that any expenditure incurred is unlawful or applied for a purpose that is not within the scope, amount, or period of an appropriation or other statutory authority. And then they can stop payments from a Crown Bank account or a departmental bank account to prevent money from being used for a purpose that is unlawful or inconsistent with any appropriation. This is what we need in this country, Mr. Speaker. You know, because now one is, I don't know, in a building in town, another one is somewhere else. They are not sharing these reports. Money is being withdrawn and used for very different purposes. And then we find out later as morticians, 2 years later, 3 years, if even we're able to find out. Because when they don't share that, the Auditor General is not able to tell us that this money was not used for its intended purpose. So I think it's something to rethink and bring back the officer of the Controller and Auditor General. Maybe we just wanted to create 2 jobs, I don't know. But that is what, thank you. I just wanted to inform him that many other jurisdictions still have that distinction, especially in the Commonwealth, countries.
Proceed, Senator Mtula.
Yes, thank you for the information, Senator Sakaja. It's always useful to ponder over these issues, because we are legislators and we must continue doing this. In Germany, the auditor is called a president. And then to secure that office, the president has a longer term than parliament. As we know it, both House of Representatives, Bundesrat and Bundestag. So that then their term is not tied to the term of the politicians. That's how they do it. So the president, who is the Auditor General in Germany, summons everybody. They do as they please. They have security of tenure. So they are not subject to the usual games that we play when we are appointing an Auditor General, party politics, etc., etc. And those are some of the things that we need to think about. Because I've said the security, the process of audit cannot be left to members of the Senate. It must be left to technical people. And it is those technical people who will help us. The politicians sitting in these committees, both in the House of Commons, in the Congress, and the House of Representatives, ideally just sit there to approve reports. The technical teams are the ones who do this. You cannot shift the people who work in the Public Accounts Committee every 6 or so months, that there is nobody there who has institutional memory. Now, we are being asked to reconstitute the committee. The first chairman was Kajwang. The second chairman is Senator Ongeri. The third one might be a different one. The first one doesn't know what the second one knows. The third one doesn't know what the first one and second one did. And yet, it is possible that you're dealing with the same county governor who was in office since 2013. In fact, this Senate should, at the end of every session, between those 5 years, have an exit report on a particular county. Exit report, and say, between 2013 and 2017, this is the performance of County of Nairobi with regard to its audit. So that then you have a report for the next session or the next session of Parliament or Senate to follow up. But otherwise, what we are doing now, Mr. Speaker, is filling the order paper with a lot of these things and passing so many resolutions which are not going to add any value to the members of these respective counties wherever they occur. Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Senator Wambua.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity to also make a contribution on this motion, Mr. Speaker, by the Senate, the Committee on County Public Accounts and Investments. Mr. Speaker, I will begin by thanking, because I have to, the committee for compiling this report and tabling it to my the Speaker for debate. Mr. Speaker, there are serious and fundamental questions that all of us need to engage in as far as this and other reports by the same committee are concerned. Mr. Speaker, I say that because the report that we are dealing with is for the financial year 2014-2015. The question that comes to mind is, so what? The report is here. 6, 7 years down the line, observations have been made and recommendations put forward. So what, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, the level of misappropriation and misallocation of public funds in counties, and I dare say almost every county in this country, is legendary, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker, how these auditors, both the Auditor General and our own committee, how they find reason and evidence to come up with some of the recommendations and observations that they come up with, the Speaker, is very baffling. I will give you an example, Mr. Speaker. As Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. said, there's a tendency in a lot of counties where fire is just a way of finding its way into finance offices. It's just amazing, you know. Somehow finance offices get burned, documents are destroyed, and that is it. And when you ask for evidence of allocation of resources, you're told, sorry, those documents were consumed in the fire that gutted the finance offices. You ask for backup, they say they had not procured a backup system by the time the fire was gutting the premises. And that is it. That's where the story ends, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to actually pray to the Almighty God that He will give us longevity of life, that in around 2050 or 2030 something, 2040 something, when the Senate of the Republic of Kenya will then be debating the audit reports for the 2017-2018 financial year, I want to see what they will be saying about particular investments in my own county, Mr. Speaker. Everybody in this country, you ask them, I think very few people in this country will not know something called Kikotek in Kitui. But just scratching the surface of that thing called Kikotek will will open a can of worms for a lot of things and for a lot of people. In the first place, an investment that continues to take up public resources. When it was established, even before the County Assembly of Kitui passed the necessary enabling law to establish the facility. But even most importantly, Mr. Speaker, the other day, because wonders will never cease, I saw my governor basking in the glory of an announcement that she was making that now Kitui, as the first inland artificial beach. And I ask myself, who does these things? The Speaker. Who takes public money to go and invest in certain projects? Mr. Speaker, I do not want to turn this into a session of poking holes in the administration of finances by the county government of Kitui. The only thing, Mr. Speaker, that actually made me to want to contribute to this report is to ask the hard question: what is the value of these reports in our work? What really is the value of these reports? Beyond getting opportunity to ventilate on them, beyond apportioning blame on certain people and certain offices, what really is the value of this report? Because, Mr. Speaker, if today we are dealing with 2014, 2015, what remedies are available to correct the messes that were made then, when we know very, very well that between 2015 and today, a lot more mess has been visited on the administration of finances belonging to the public in the counties. Mr. Speaker, I would want to recommend two things. One is to create proper synergies between, and I think that is what Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. was saying, between the controller and the auditor, and by extension, Mr. Speaker, all the audit institutions that have a bearing on the management of public resources in our counties. Mr. Speaker, the other day I had issues with the controller of budget, and I wrote to them asking very basic questions. The first question was, how is it that every so often the staff in Kitui County go without pay, and other counties, staff in other counties, are being paid? How, at what point does then the controller of budget authorize expenditure by the county government to an extent that there is no money to pay salaries for staff? The Speaker, I'm still awaiting those responses, but truth be said, there appear to be serious connivance between county governments and the controller of budget and the Auditor General. And the Speaker, unless and until that we find a way of making sure that before counties spend these monies, proper due diligence, proper fiscal analysis of projects, proper consultations are done, Mr. Speaker, governors should not just be allowed to invest public finances the way they want to invest them. Mr. Speaker, lastly, I want to say that yes, we could have been reduced to just being morticians in dealing with the reports of Pike. But Mr. Speaker, there is a matter that has been raised on the floor here on where is the accountability when it comes to even our own county public accounts and investments. The Speaker, it will be important that as we think through maybe reconstituting that committee, serious thinking goes into it, and to ensure, as has been suggested by my colleagues, that when we finally do the exit reports by committees, then all CPI committees from 2013 to 2022, or from 2017 to 2022, will give exit reports for each county, for Kitui County, for Nairobi County, for Machakos, for Makueni. That is a report for each county. It enables the other committees that come on board to know exactly what was happening, and so that as they begin their work, they are properly guided by information gathered by previous committees. The Speaker, I rest my case.
Honorable Senators, I do not see any interest to contribute on the motion, and the chair is not present. And I bring to your attention to, that is B. A senator who has moved a substantive motion has, on conclusion of debate, and therefore the question is put, have a right of reply and may delegate that right to another senator to reply the said senators instead. Honorable Senators, we have not received any delegation of that right, and the chair forfeit that chance of replying the motion. Now, and under 79, we have also determined that the motion do affect counties. I therefore defer putting the question until next time when the order appears on the order paper. Next order.
Order number 10, motion, fast-tracking cultural developments in counties.
The motion stands deferred. Next order.
Order number 11, motion, parking charges in public institution offering essential services.
Motion deferred. Next order.
Order number 12, motion, provision of monthly stipend and other support services to cancer patients in identified county hospitals.
Senator Gertrude Msuruve.
Leading cause of death after infectious and cardiovascular diseases, with the annual incidence closing in on 37,000 new cases with an annual 28,000. Further aware that the economic impact of cancer is significant and is increasing with staggering consequences occasioned by increased medical costs, lost income, and the financial, physical, and emotional burden placed on families and caregivers during treatment time. Acknowledging that while Kenya is among the state parties that signed and ratified the Abuja Declaration that affirmed that state parties shall set aside at least 15% of their annual budget to improve the health sector, and that Article 43(1)(a) of the Constitution of Kenya states that everyone has a right to the highest attainable standards of health. Noting that the Ministry of Health has put in place the National Cancer Control Strategy 2016 to 2020, aimed at implementing and coordinated and responsive cancer control framework that leads to the reduction in incidence, morbidity, and mortality through effective partnership for collaborations for prevention, diagnostics, treatment, palliation, and financing of cancer control activities to improve well-being of Kenyans. Concerned that gaps in the existing legislative framework, such as discriminatory practices in the form of coverage limits and bureaucracies by the National Hospital Insurance Fund, that is NHIF, and private insurance firms that result in delayed diagnosis, incomplete cancer treatments, and inadequate follow-ups that contribute to poor outcomes for cancer patients. Now, therefore, the Senate calls upon the Ministry of Health, in partnership with the Council of Governors, to incorporate county cancer support services in their annual development plan. 2, partner with stakeholders to create support, including counseling services. And 3, provide cancer patients with free prescriptions, wigs for those who have lost their hair, improvised breasts where applicable, and a subsidy for prostheses. Honorable Speaker, as I begin to move this motion, I want to begin, Honorable Speaker, by honoring my fellow legislators who have gone before me. I want to honor the late Waititu. I want to honor Honorable Laboso. I want to honor Honorable Ben, who was just sitting almost where I am sitting. And I also want to take this time, Honorable Speaker, to sympathize and empathize with the millions of Kenyans who are right now in hospital going through the cancer treatment and going through surgery, going through chemotherapy. And I want to also encourage those who have gone through the treatment plan, the active cancer patients, those who have survived and those who are still surviving, to soldier on, even as they still live in this world of the living. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that cancer takes a toll on very many people, whether rich or poor, young or old. And I want to say that everyone is actually a candidate of cancer. And the issue of cancer should be a concern of every Kenyan, because we cannot be too careful. No Kenyan can say he or she is too careful not to get cancer. So this is a motion that involves all Kenyans, and all Kenyans, whether rich or poor, whether in executive positions or not in executive positions, must actually take the issue of cancer as something very serious and something we must do something about as a nation. And Honorable Speaker, I want to take this opportunity as, cancer survivor to say that we do not have a predictable cause of cancer, and we cannot say that cancer is predominantly a lifestyle disease. We cannot say that cancer can catch 1, 2, 3 people because there is no specific, cause of cancer. There are different types of cancers, diverse, almost even 200, and the causes are actually unknown. And even when you're talking of the causes, even the symptoms of cancer are known, because it depends on the type of cancer. Different kinds of cancer have different symptoms, so you cannot sit down to begin advising someone that if you feel a pain, just know that maybe you really have cancer. And that is why I'm saying, Honorable Speaker, from a survivor's point of view and from someone who has experienced and gone through this, that cancer is an abnormality of cell that can really catch anyone, and we really have to see how to help even those people who go through cancer and their families. And Honorable Speaker, even when it comes to the treatment plan, there's no specific treatment plan of cancer. I saw yesterday in the papers where the bill, there's a bill already in the National Assembly that has come out saying that when it comes to treatment plan, we have to exhaust all avenues of local treatment in order to pursue treatment abroad, in order for even people to be referred to India, South Africa, and so on. But Honorable Speaker, I stand on the floor of this House to say candidly that as Kenya, we are not ready for that bill. Even if the bill passes, Honorable Speaker, it is not a bill that is going to help cancer survivors. It is not a bill that is going to help cancer patients, because we have not trained oncologists, enough oncologists to deal with cancer, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say on the floor of this House that the issue of medical tourism should stop when it comes to patients with terminal illnesses, when it comes to patients who are diagnosed of cancer. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that even on the floor of this House, I want to thank Karen Hospital. When I was diagnosed of cancer in 2013, Karen Hospital was candid enough to tell me, and it called my family, that they are not able to treat me because the kind of cancer I had was rare. The doctors were not able to manage. It was bone cancer, and bone cancer is not predominantly found in adults, and they surrendered. They told me the truth, that you're going to lose your leg, you're going to use your uterus, you're going to lose your pelvis. And I asked them as an innocent patient, then when I lose all that, then what will I remain with? I will forever thank Karen Hospital, because they gave me a referral to go to India. And when I went to India, Honorable Speaker, I was able to salvage my limb. When you see me walking with this limb, I walk because God allowed me. God allowed me to remain with my limb, because if I did not pursue other avenues, other alternatives, I would be having one leg, without a uterus, without a pelvis, without a leg. Honorable Speaker, I am speaking from a survivor's point of view. Sometimes we come up with legislations simply because we are, coming up with laws. But the laws we make sometimes do not really help the people who are really affected. So I want to say strongly as a cancer survivor that we must rethink how we look at people who have cancer. We must rethink how we treat them. Because, Honorable Speaker, once someone is diagnosed of cancer, life changes, even the perception of life. If you're working somewhere, Honorable Speaker, no boss will give you promotion. They look at you in terms of you can die anytime. You are given 2 months to die. You are given 3 weeks to die. You are given 1 year to die. 3 years to die, Honorable Speaker. So when it comes to promotion, Honorable Speaker, it is rare that people who have chronic diseases are actually earmarked for promotion. It is also rare that they are even given high cadre jobs, because when people look at you, when your employer looks at you, your employer sees like you're going to die anytime, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, we must come up with legislation that will help cancer survivors. We must come up with legislation that will help people suffering from chronic diseases, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say on the floor of this House that I commend Jomo Kenyatta University because of the intervention that they did for me, because they believed in me as a cancer survivor and I was a lecturer. They pursued and ensured that I had the money that would help me get my treatment in India, Honorable Speaker. And I was never laid out of my job, Honorable Speaker, simply because My employer believed that I was going to be well. My employer believed that I was still going to be productive. And up to now, Honorable Speaker, it is the reason I still have my limb, Honorable Speaker, because Jomo Kenyatta intervened. And I remember when I was there, Honorable Speaker, they were able to fast track even to ensure that any part-times I taught for so many months, I was paid. And the VC, Professor Ngumi, I thank her wherever she is, she would call me from India to ask me, Gertrude, how are you getting on? My colleagues would ask me, how are you getting on? That gave me hope, Honorable Speaker, that I was going to make it in the world of the living, Honorable Speaker. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that people with cancer go through a lot of hopelessness. No one ever makes a follow-up to find out how they're getting on. In fact, most of the time when people talk to them, it is like, when are you going back to India? When are you going back for treatment? They give you a lot of hopelessness. Nobody gives you an opportunity to be in the land of the living and do what the living are doing. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that it is our honors as a Senate to see how to help cancer survivors, to see how to help cancer patients. Honorable Speaker, Kenya is among the countries that signed the Abuja Declaration that stated that state parties were going to support health, and 15% of the national revenue would go to health. Honorable Speaker, it is painful when I say on the floor of this House that even from the 15% that state parties are supposed to set aside, we do not have money aside that have been set to train oncologists. Honorable Speaker, even if we buy equipment, even if we rent equipment, and we have not trained the personnel, we are not paying them handsomely. Honorable Speaker, medical tourism will forever be in Kenya. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, in the Senate, we allocate a lot of money to go to the counties for the purpose of health. But when you go to the counties, Honorable Speaker, and when you go to the ground, things are different. If you follow survivors, cancer survivors, you will find that they're languishing in pain. Go to the Githurai. Some of them call me until I don't know whether to block them or what. They want support from me because they know that I'm a cancer survivor. But remember, as a government, we are failing. We have to see how to ensure that cancer survivors are given NHIF cards. Cancer survivors get the treatment freely because it is not by choice that they had cancer. Anyone can get cancer, Honorable Speaker. When it comes to cancer, it knocks the high and mighty and the lowly. It has no choice, Honorable Speaker. So it is just our honors as a Senate to see how are we going to intervene, especially when it comes to issue of cancer, Honorable Speaker. And I can tell you for sure, Honorable Speaker, that cancer, especially when someone in a family is diagnosed of cancer, if the person is the head of the family, the entire family is affected. Even the children, Honorable Speaker. In terms of performance in school, they are affected. Psychologically, they are affected. They need to be counseled. They need to be talked to. They need a support system, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that it is unfortunate that even when one is the head of a family and is diagnosed of cancer, sometimes one loses a job, and the same person has children, the same person has so many needs, that these needs that take one to the grave, Honorable Speaker, because there's no one to empathize with you. There's no one to feel what you're feeling. There's no one to say, this person is dying of cancer. How can we intervene? The children even have, papers. Can we give them jobs? It is rare that people just intervene. Honorable Speaker, as I talk about this issue with a passion as a cancer survivor, I hope that this passion is going to touch senators in this House, that they're going to support this bill, that they're going to support this motion, that in the counties money will be allocated for the purpose of supporting people with cancer, Honorable Speaker. Even people who get deformities as a result of cancer. I was not born with a deformity. I was not born with a disability, but I thank God for the disability because it took God to give me the disability in order to survive. Were it not for that, I would not be surviving. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, there is need for empathy for people who get deformities as a result of cancer. There are millions of women in Kenya who have lost their breasts. They're not able to buy the prosthesis. What is the county government doing with the health facilities? They should be able to help people who have lost their breasts so that there's subsidized prosthesis, or there's even free prosthesis. There are people also who have lost their limbs as a result of cancer. The county government should identify such people and see how to help them so that they have artificial limbs. And with the artificial limbs, it is possible for them to be productive, Honorable Speaker. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that in many nations of the world, people talk about issues of cancer. People raise money about issues of cancer, but the money does not reach the intended persons. It becomes a game. It becomes a money game. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, it has reached a time when we have to empathize with others. If we do not empathize with others and we happen to become cancer survivors as well, we'll feel the pinch that others are making. So it is just our honor to ensure that we are making legislation that is going to help significant others, that will help us, that will help cancer survivors. Honorable Speaker, when it comes to NHIF, NHIF should be free for those who are going through cancer, Honorable Speaker. There are so many people who have cancer. You'll find that they're supposed to go for chemotherapy. Some of them cannot afford chemotherapy. Some of them end up even selling their land, property, in order to go for chemotherapy. And even after doing that, sometimes they end up dying and leaving their children, their families, languishing in poverty. In other parts of the world, like in the US, when you're diagnosed of cancer, you are treated differently. So that even when it comes to the employer treats you with empathy and caution and ensures that if you're still productive, you can still get promotion. If you're able to get promotion, and you are able to live like anybody else, that is the most important thing, to be productive. But Honorable Speaker, I want to say on the floor of this house that there are so many Kenyans who are hurting out there. They have cancer, they don't know how to get help. Sometimes they do not even get empathy, and there are some employers who even immediately they know that you have cancer or chronic disease. That becomes the end of your job. You'll find that if you're on a permanent job, you'll now become, or you'll now have a contract and all that. We should treat people with terminal illnesses with a lot of caution, with a lot of love, because it is not by choice that they get cancer. It is not by choice that they have to go through the operations and all that. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, when it comes to cancer treatment is very, very expensive, because it will be determined by the biopsies. What does the biopsies say about the cancer? What kind of cancer is it? Is it a cancer that can be treated through chemotherapy alone? Is it a cancer that can be treated through surgery? And even if it's surgery, you cannot go through surgery before you go through chemotherapy, because the cancer needs to be shrunk. Once it's shrunk, then it becomes manageable, Honorable Speaker. Is it a cancer that will also need radiotherapy and all that? But all these things, Honorable Speaker, to be true and sincere for cancer patients, doctors need to be trained. Oncologists need to be trained. As a nation, we must invest in the treatment of cancer patients. And the investment is not buying the equipment. The investment is ensuring that you are training oncologists. The investment, entails that even anesthetists who are going to deal with cancer patients are also trained. That human resource is the most important. After the human resource, that is when now, equipment can come in and all that. Why bring equipment when people do not know how to use the equipment? Why bring equipment when we do not have the expertise? We need to invest in training oncologists. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, it is not just training oncologists. We must invest in paying oncologists handsomely, Honorable Speaker, because if we do not pay them handsomely, we'll have medical tourism, where you'll be referred abroad. And if you're referred abroad, whoever is referring you maybe will be given a commission. So we have to see as a nation, how can we actually help? A country like India, when it comes to treatment, it becomes affordable, simply because the payment is good. They have the medicines and all that. But we have to see what can we borrow a leaf from India, Honorable Speaker? Because we need to have those oncologists here. We don't have to refer our people to India. We don't have to refer our people to South Africa. But if we don't have the personnel, then why waste our people here and say that we are trying to explore, So I want to say, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Getruve, you can now conclude your contribution on the motion.
So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, as a cancer survivor, my appeal is that the county government, the national government, should take the issue of cancer seriously and ensure that there are policies in place that support people with cancer in terms of treatment, in terms of palliation, in terms of prosthesis, in terms of even wigs, all the support they need. The county government needs to have a plan, and it needs to put in its yearly plan that this is what we're going to do for cancer survivors so that they live long life. Because if they're given the opportunity, and I'm a testimony, they can be productive, because I know that I'm productive in this house because I was given an opportunity to live as a cancer survivor. And I call upon my fellow Senator, Dr. Milgo, to second this motion. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Milgo.
Sorry. Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to support this very important motion that my colleague, that is provision of a monthly stipend and other support service to cancer patients in identified county hospitals. My colleague has spoken to it with a lot of passion, more specific. Oh, it's my time over. Okay, thank you. More specifically, because he's a cancer survivor. And I like the passion that he has, because one way is that out of those people who have got cancer out there will in this case be able to speak about it clearly, so that in this case others can be helped. Mr. Speaker, sir, Article 43(1)(a) of Kenya's Constitution speak to actually ensuring that everyone has a right to affordable and standardized healthcare in this country. However, Mr. Speaker, it has been a challenge to ensure that everyone of us has that standardized healthcare. I think my colleague has spoken to the fact that there is a lot of medical tourists to other countries, not because we cannot be able to afford, but because of misplaced priorities. Mr. Speaker, sir, many times in our country, we are talking about economy. And in any case, for a country to be recognized, it is a very sound economy. And I must say that a sound economy is contributed by people who are healthy, because healthy economies are contributed by healthy, that is a healthy nation contributes to a healthy economy. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is a challenge, however, when we are talking about very many diseases that have affected people so that they fail to be productive. More specifically, when we talk about cancer, cancer itself is worse because of the fact that it is actually the third leading killer, because in most cases, like my colleague said, there is a lack of treatment centers, and in any case, we even lack oncologists, that is the specialized doctors that treat cancer. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is from this motion, I even got to know that there are well over 200 types of cancers in this country. However, the major challenge with cancer is the fact that unless it is diagnosed very early at the stages 1 to 2, it becomes a challenge to treat it thereafter. Mr. Speaker, sir, actually in our country, annually it kills well over 28,000 people, those that are reported, but I know there are more people that die of cancer. In most cases, when we go to the villages, we keep finding a lot of people that are passed on as a result of cancer. Mr. Speaker, sir, some of them, maybe these 28,000 are those that are reported, but very many other cases are not reported, sometimes because of cultural issues. Some people may even believe that some other people may have died of witchcrafts and name them, but then what it is that there are very many more people that die of cancer, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, this disease has robbed this country robbed families, Mr. Speaker, of their livelihoods. What it is that, as my colleague said, we do realize that when somebody is diagnosed with cancer from a particular family, just apart from not being able to even continue with normal job, there is normally even confusion in terms of orienting themselves in terms of the normal duties at home, And in some instances, we even find that if cancer has gotten a wife, we may even find that some husbands choose to divorce them, Mr. Speaker. In other cases, Mr. Speaker, we find that children from such families end up suffering because of loss of livelihoods from their parents. And in most cases, we do realize that cancer itself is a disease that takes up a lot of money, because what it is that the moment it is at stage 3 and 4, before it is diagnosed, what that means is that that person will require palliative care, and of course requires to be a lot of other medicine, in this case to relieve pain, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, by so doing, the family ends up having a challenge. Just apart from this disease affecting families, we've realized that our country has been robbed of great leaders. My own governor, Dr. Cheus Laboso, died of cancer, Mr. Speaker. We have our own pen, the senator from Migori. We even have Ken Okod from Kibra, and the most recent member of parliament, Waititu from Chicha, Mr. Speaker. These are great leaders who are nipped at the butt. They were going to contribute to this country, Mr. Speaker. However, we have lost them at that very early age, Mr. Speaker. May their souls rest in eternal peace. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say that our major challenge, although Kenya is among the countries that actually affirmed their Abuja declaration to set aside 15% of their annual budget to, in this case, for medical sector, it is a challenge. We've just gotten from the House, from the Public Accounts Committee, how a lot of money is, there's a lot of leverage in the counties, a lot of money is lost in the counties, and even more recently, when we had COVID-19, there are few counties, Mr. Speaker, that were able to put up even seclusion centers, were able to put up facilities to ensure that patients are given the care that they required at that particular time. And in any case, that is a disease that in this case just came recently. And while our Jubilee government has in their manifesto one of their 4 pillars, that is healthcare, as one of the key, that is economic program, Mr. Speaker, sir, this universal care has not been achieved just because of the fact that there has been other priorities. One of them, of course, COVID-19 came in. We have had other issues, and even corruption issues have had to bedevil our country. More recently, our president said that every day we are losing almost 2 billion shillings in terms of corruption, Mr. Speaker. The other day we saw how COVID funds that were even taken to KEMSA, Mr. Speaker, in this case are subject of corruption, Mr. Speaker. And right now, although no culprit has been actually found, where there is fire, there is smoke, Mr. Speaker, and we do realize that a lot of funding has gotten lost. And while this funding is getting lost, we have a lot of cancer patients that are languishing in poverty. They are dying, Mr. Speaker. My colleague was lucky to go to for some specialized treatment elsewhere. However, for those who are not able, in this case, it is a challenge. Not be able to put up cancer centers, Mr. Speaker. They cannot be able to train oncologists, Mr. Speaker. We do not even have the treatment machines, Mr. Speaker, to be able to screen these patients well in time. And what it is that another major challenge is the fact that there is a lack of sensitization to be able to inform the populace that in this case it is important to go for medical checkup even if one is not sick. Because here we are saying if cancer goes to stage 3 and 4, that time it becomes very difficult to treat. And therefore, it is only at stage 1 and 2, if cancer is diagnosed, that it is treatable. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a point that we therefore need a lot of screening centers, maybe right across all our counties, to be able to arrest this disease, Mr. Speaker. If this disease is a third killer, we need to get to a point where in this case we give it the attention it deserves. Mr. Speaker, sir, We even want to reach a time where somebody can stand up and say, I'm a cancer patient. Just like the late Waititu was able to say, and in this case, it will be able to encourage others to even come out to go for screening. Mr. Speaker, sir, cancer is a disease that affects various organs in the body. And in this case, some of our people do not even know at times that they have got cancer. We have cancer that affects the reproductive organs. And we have come across very many people in our counties who have, in this case, been shy to come out to explain the challenges that they are having. And by the time we get to know, they are already dying. Like the case of that is cancer that affects men, the reproductive organs, the cancer that affect women reproductive organs. These cancers are very challenging, Mr. Speaker, because in most cases, people are shy to come out clearly and say what they are feeling, and by so doing, by the time this is discovered, they are already at a very critical stage. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think it is this being a challenging disease. I think our government is called upon to actually ensure that screening centers are set up so that these diseases are nipped at the early stage. We need to also ensure that we bring to our country screening machines. I think last time when the county government started, there are equipments that are in this case for hire in the county governments. I would have wished that these machines would have included, Mr. Speaker, machines that are used for screening cancer. Again, Mr. Speaker, if it were not for this mega corruption, I think we would be able to access standardized and specialized medical care so that each and every one of the people will be able to access medical care. However, the major challenge is being able to even get funding to go for the screening itself. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say that this is a very important motion. Although Senator Ketchut is saying that the bill that is coming from national government is not going to assist in cancer, I think it shall go a long way to actually speak to cancer issues, and it may in this case be able to assist this country to set aside funding, maybe even as a stipend, maybe even to treat oncologists, maybe even to ensure that we have screening centers, and to even ensure that we have machines, and we even get people to sensitize the populace in terms of how to actually take care in terms of medical wellness. Mr. Speaker, sir, with those very many remarks, I second this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question, which is that aware that in Kenya, cancer is estimated to be the third leading cause of death after infectious and cardiovascular diseases, with the annual incidence of cancer closing in on 37,000 new cases within an annual mortality, of 28,000. Further aware that the economic impact of cancer is significant and is increasing with staggering consequences occasioned by increased medical costs, loss of income, and financial, physical, and emotional burden placed on families and caregivers during treatment time. Acknowledging that while Kenya is among the state parties that signed and ratified the Abuja Declaration that affirmed the state parties that shall set aside at least 15% of their annual budget to improve the healthcare sector, and that Article 43(1)(a) of the Constitution of Kenya states that everyone has a right to the highest attainable standards of health. Noting that the Ministry of Health has put in place the National Cancer Control Strategy 2016-2020 aimed at implementing and coordinated and responsive cancer control framework that leads to reduction in incidence, morbidity, and mortality through effective partnership for collaboration, for prevention, diagnosis, treatment, palliation, and financing of cancer control activities to improve well-being of Kenyans. Concerned that gaps in the existing legislative framework, such as discriminatory practices in the form of coverage limits and bureaucracies by the National Hospital Insurance Fund and private insurance firms that result in delayed diagnosis, incomplete cancer treatments, and inadequate follow-ups that contribute to poor outcomes for cancer patients. Now, therefore, the Senate calls upon the Ministry of Health, in partnership with the Council of Governors, to 1, incorporate county cancer support services in their annual development plans. 3, partner with stakeholders to create support, including counseling services. And 3, to provide cancer patients with free prescriptions, wigs for those who have lost their hair, improvised breasts where applicable, and subsidy for prosthesis. What's it, Senator Gertrude Musuruve?
Kindly, I'm requesting, because of the nature of this motion, and it has really a national and international impact, and I'm requesting kindly that the motion does not conclude today, that the debate is carried on to the next session, so that members can ventilate on it and we see how to enrich the bill that is coming from the National Assembly, for the purpose of ensuring that we are giving good support and coming up with a law that will help cancer survivors, patients, and active, those who are going through cancer in this country, Honorable Speaker. That is my request.
Senator Gertrude Musuruve, we are requesting clarification from you whether you are using Standing Order 105, that the debate be now adjourned, or that the chairperson, okay, that you request deferring of the question.
Think that the debate, proceeds to the next session.
You
under the Standing Order
105.
105. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I now put the question under Standing Order 105, that now the debate be adjourned. Will as many as of the opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable Senators, having concluded the business of the sitting, it's now time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, 4th March 2021 at 2:30 p.m.